Go.
Yet another alarming report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was recently released. This time, the group of experts convened by the United Nations provided the clearest message yet on what would happen if countries didn't immediately get their act together on climate change. That, quote, the dangers of climate change are mounting so rapidly that they could soon overwhelm the ability of both nature and humanity to adapt unless greenhouse gas emissions are quickly reduced.
The report also urged global leaders to forego, quote, incremental changes for more transformational measures to address CO2 emissions, since the machinations now in place are simply inefficient to make much of a difference. The report alerts, if average warming passes 1.5 degrees Celsius, even humanity's best efforts to adapt could falter. One agriculture expert told the New York Times, quote, the cost of defending coastal communities against rising seas could exceed what many nations can afford. In some regions, including parts of North America, livestock and outdoor workers could face rising levels of heat stress that make farming increasingly difficult. And what's so extraordinary about this is that we currently have a piece of legislation that has already been written that includes somewhere between $500 and $700 billion in clean energy tax credits. It's not punishing the fossil fuel industry, but it incentivizes clean energy. All 50 Democratic senators have said that they support this. The House has passed it. The president proposed it. And yet, it doesn't even get talked about anymore. It's completely crazy making. Manchin and Sinema have problems with some of the social spending and some of the other elements of the Build Back Better Act, but they've all said that they're good with the climate portion. We have the UN government panel saying this. It's like, okay, then here's a crazy idea. Vote for the thing that you say you support and pass it into law.
Why won't they do it? They just...
I mean, the way that the negotiations collapsed in such acrimony in December which was then followed by Schumer taking a month to do voting rights that he knew would fail, which has then led into the war in Ukraine, has just completely derailed everything. His State of the Union speech is tonight. He postponed it originally, hoping that they would be able to cobble back together some type of deal so that he'd have something to say, hey, look what we did. That clearly isn't happening. So there was hope that by now he would have pulled it back together. But it's truly remarkable. It's as if these three different sides don't realize that they all agree on this major element, which would be funded by tax increases on corporations, et cetera, that also they have basic agreement on. It's utterly bizarre and like crazy making. It's like, you say you support this, scientists say you got to do it, so do it. What are you waiting for? Kim, what are they waiting for? I don't get it.
They're waiting for the money to dry up, right? They're waiting for the people that are opposed to it to no longer be opposed to it. The ones that are lining their pockets. I mean, look, when it comes to climate, this is something that Democrats ran on and said that this was an existential crisis, and this is why we must defeat Donald Trump, why we must defeat Republicans, because they're going to kill the environment. And then when push comes to shove, when they actually get into office, we're not seeing this actually happen. And a lot of it is because it is, for many of them, just lip service. I don't know really truly how many of them actually believe that this is an existential crisis. For one, if they did, I think they would maybe do something about it. They certainly think other things are existential crises, and they certainly quickly, swiftly do things about that, like Russia, Ukraine right now, right? They're all going after, doing various things. And then the preparedness, what kind of transformation, when they say we can't do incremental changes, we have to do transformational measures. What does that mean? Do we have the infrastructure for that? There's just a lot of questions.
Like, the sky is falling kind of rhetoric to the most alarmist climate change talk that doesn't match with, most people's most people obviously care about the environment. They want the world to be a cleaner place. We want to do our part, that kind of thing. But the sort of we can't do transformational change. We can't do transformational change on any policy subject there is. All you can do is incremental change, and we can't control what half the world is doing. We can only control what our country does. So if they're going to continue to, at best, do incremental change in China, Russia, India, etc., in Europe, then why should we be held accountable for more than that?
We directly account for a quarter of the carbon emissions. So that's one out of that's direct. Indirectly, it's significantly more than that. And if we take the lead, others will follow. So
it just has to be reframed, right? This can't be a climate issue and oh no, global warming is going to kill us all. It's got to be national security and war issue. So if you can change the rhetoric and make it more, and I know you did this even on your radar yesterday, you were talking about how this is more of a national security issue and it can be framed in this way. We shouldn't be reliant on Saudi oil or Russian natural gas, right? So it is a matter of national security. And I think if it could be framed in order to appease the warmongering minds of people in Washington, then maybe they would take it more seriously and make it more transformational than incremental. Maybe.
And the military has been saying for years now that this is a massive national security issue. But you're right that the powers that be, basically the fossil fuel industry, that still controls an enormous amount of the wealth in the world, has every incentive to just drag this out as long as they possibly can.
But there's a lot of the way this issue is discussed is often a very either or. Either we will put through all the measures that will save us from climate change. Actually, there are some people in the climate camp who actually won't even go that far. They say there's nothing we can do. It's too late. We are a doomed planet. And then there's some people saying, well, okay, if we immediately pass this entire agenda, we might possibly survive. And then there's a lot of people saying this is all made up or whatever. But there's a lot of middle outcomes. Like we could we could preserve more of the seacoast. We could have maybe fewer extreme weather events. We've argued about how much climate change contributes to extreme weather. It's not like we're all going to die and go extinct or not, right? Well, there's a range of outcomes. Even the UN thinks there's a range of outcomes, a range of effects that will be had based on based on the projections of how we will confront these challenges.
Right, and we usually talk about the median range that's being predicted, and so there is one on this side, but so far all of the actual data that has emerged has been more extreme than has been forecast. And if you talk about the extreme ones, it gets really, really bad. And I wish the climate would compromise more with us. I wish that if we said, hey, look, I know that we should do 2 trillion now, but we can't do 2 trillion. We're going to do 500 billion. And so in exchange for that, how about the tundra how about the tundra that's thawing in Siberia and in Alaska and releasing methane emissions into the atmosphere? Can you tweak that and knock that down by 50%? Because we're doing our part, so you should meet us halfway. The rude tundra is just like, no, you know what? We're thawing at the rate we're thawing at, and we're going to release methane at the rate we're releasing it at. Oh, and also we're releasing it from the ocean floor too, at ever increasing rates as the ocean temperatures increase. We're like, yeah, but we really do want to get to this eventually. So if you could slow that down, that would enable us to meet you halfway, because it's just too extreme what you're doing right now. And I hope that the people who are saying that runaway climate change is already here are wrong. We don't know. But the only thing we can do. If
the people saying we can't do anything about it, it's too late, we're doomed, then why bother?
Well, I think there's still going to be, there are some scenarios in which it's too late, but I think that there are still 90% of scenarios in which there will still be people left. Like, okay, yes, there may be a population decline in the several billions, but that means there's still several billions of people still on the planet. And so it's worth fighting for those people.
If the population declines of its own, it's not necessarily
Well, it's not necessarily its own. People starving to death.
Well, all right, Bill Gates.
Right.
Sorry. we got to go.
Right. Yes. We'll figure this out.
I just had to make that. I'm sorry. I'm sure people caught my joke. Maybe Robbie didn't. He didn't. He looks like he doesn't understand what I just said. I just said
Bill Gates joke.
Gates.
Is that a
After you were,
is Bill Gates a population control guy?
That's what people think. Yeah, that they think he's trying to depopulate.
No, but the population control people being wrong about so much of this is what, like, throughout all the Paul Ehrlich type people is saying that, yes, the whole world's going to starve to death. We'll have too many people and we won't be able to feed that. Like, that turned out to be disastrously wrong because of the Green Revolution. We were able to produce much, 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 much more food because people get smarter and more efficient at doing those things. We easily overcame that problem, even though all the experts in this category were predicting mass starvation. By the end of the 1900s, fewer people, a smaller percentage of the global population was starving than ever before in human history. So that's
they blew that one.
Yeah. So maybe we have the capacity to think through these problems and limit our.
They blew it by putting this precise time on it, saying that by the end of the 1970s.
Right, and then they said, well, no, it'll be by the end of the 1980s. It'll be by the end of the 1990s. Still hasn't happened.
Right.
Maybe we can wait.
All right.
Unfortunately, the temperature predictions are those ones.
Those ones are good.
They're working out, unfortunately.
All right, we got to go. We'll have more rising after this.